Good evening and welcome to the second in our series of virtual Lenten Suppers here at Bethany United Church of Christ. Thanks to the Jacobsen family for doing our readings and our skit for tonight, and thanks to the Schwankes for lighting the candles. I wanted to just say a couple words about Sunday's gospel, maybe some things to think about before church. It's the transfiguration of Jesus according to Mark. This is when Jesus is on top of Mount Tabor with Peter, James, and John. They see a vision of Moses, Elijah, and Jesus talking to each other, and Jesus is transfigured. His physical appearance changes, and he shines like lightning. They see Jesus for who he really is, and they're having a mountaintop spiritual experience. And those are fun. We want to stay there forever. Peter, James, and John want to build 3 sheds. They want to put Jesus in one shed. They want to put Moses in one shed and Elijah in another. They just want to keep them there so they can just revisit that beautiful experience whenever they want. The disciples then go down off the mountain because we can't stay on the mountaintop forever. We eventually have to go back to the world. And God's voice says, "This is my son whom I love. Listen to him." So the gospel and the sermon on Sunday are going to be about how do we listen to Jesus? How do we listen for God's voice and make sure that it's God's voice we are listening to and not our own opinions or the opinions of some other person? And I believe that the disciples were so delighted to receive this vision, but they fell into a trap of focusing too much on the mountaintop spiritual experience and maybe focusing too much on the life of the world to come. And this is a subtle trap that Christ followers sometimes fall into. We worry about what's going to happen in the life of the world to come and maybe neglect the needs of the world that God has put us in right now. There are billions of people right now in the world who need help. And Jesus wants to heal those people. And he wants to use us as his hands and feet, as his body in the world to do good. There's people who are hungry and homeless and lonely and abused and sick. And Jesus will heal them when we remember what we learned on the mountaintop. That we can do all things through Christ who gives us strength. That's why we worship every week. It's not that we're trying to just check off a task. Worship is like the mountaintop experience where we get our spiritual wells filled. Because then we return to the world from worship, we spiritually descend the mountain back to the valley below, which is what we call everyday life. And we have a renewed connection with God who equips us and then sends us into the world as agents of Jesus Christ. As Teresa of Avila said, Christ has no body on earth but yours, no hands but yours, no feet but yours. Yours are the hands with which Jesus will bless his people. Yours are the feet with which Jesus will walk about doing good. Yours are the eyes with which Jesus looks with compassion upon his people. So may God equip us all to live our earthly lives accordingly until we finally meet God in glory.
During Lent, we remember the events that led up to the crucifixion. Jesus had come to bring hope and light to the world, but at every step there were those who willingly tried to put out that light. He brought grace and forgiveness, but these gifts were often rejected by those filled with hatred and fear. We read in the Gospel of Matthew in the 12th chapter, "It was the Sabbath, and Jesus went to a synagogue, where there was a man with a paralyzed hand. Some people were there who wanted to accuse Jesus of doing wrong. So they asked him, 'Is it against our law to heal on the Sabbath?' Jesus answered, 'What if one of you has a sheep and it falls into a deep hole on the Sabbath? Will you not take hold of it and lift it out? And a man is worth so much more than a sheep. So then our law does allow us to help someone on the Sabbath. Then Jesus said to the man with the paralyzed hand, "Stretch out your hand." The man stretched out his hand, and it became well again, just like the other one. Then the Pharisees left and made plans to kill Jesus. Even when Jesus was healing, there were those who could not accept the power and mercy of God. As the Pharisees left to make the plans to kill Jesus for healing on the Sabbath, a little of the light which had come into the world was snuffed out by the people Jesus had come to save.
Payment must be made. An encounter between Peter and Judas. Matthew 26:69 through 75. Now Peter was sitting outside the courtyard. A servant girl came to him and said, "You also were with Jesus the Galilean." But he denied it before all of them, saying, "I do not know what you are talking about." When he went out to the porch, another servant girl saw him and said to the bystanders, "This man was Jesus of Nazareth." Again he denied it with an oath. "I do not know the man." After a little while the bystanders came up and said to Peter, "Certainly you are also one of them, for your accent betrays you." Then he began to curse, and he swore an oath, "I do not know the man." At that moment the cock crowed. Then Peter remembered that Jesus had said, "Before the cock crows, you will deny me 3 times." And he went out and wept bitterly. Matthew 27:3 through 5. When Judas, his betrayer, saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders. He said, "I have sinned by betraying innocent blood." But they said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." Throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself. The scene: the upper room, just after the crucifixion of Christ. Judas is in the room alone, sitting and staring at a chair toward the center. The chair is at a table around which several other chairs are placed. The table still holds a few leftovers from the Last Supper, some dirty dishes, some broken pieces of bread, a few chalices, and a long rope curled up. Peter enters, at first hurriedly, but when he sees Judas, he slows down.
Judas,
Peter, what? What do you want?
it was you, wasn't it?
Yes. Yes, it was me. Not that it was any big mystery. He knew. He knew. Did the others send you to find me? Put a bounty on my head, maybe?
No. I had my own reasons to look for you.
What made you look here?
It makes sense. I knew you'd feel alone. Betrayal of a friend does that to a person. Anyway, this is the last place we were all together. The last place things felt like they did before. It just made sense you would be here.
Yes. Like things were before. I guess that's what brought me here. We were a team. We were going to change the world. He made us believe it could be so, and so long I believed. But that's not how it is now, is it? I destroyed it all, and you're here to make me pay, right?
We will all suffer from a master's betrayal, Judas. And yes, I'm still very angry at you for what you did. But that's not why I'm here. I guess you don't know we have more in common than you realize. You see, I betrayed him too.
You what?
3 times I had the opportunity to stand by the master to declare my loyalty, and 3 times I failed him. When others asked, I said I didn't even know him. The master went to his death needing friends, but I was nowhere to be found.
Oh.
So I came to find someone who might be feeling the same way I am now.
Feeling the same way I am, huh? Do you have a pain deep inside of you that just won't go away? I don't mean something like a pain. I mean a real pain. like someone ran you through with a sword. Do you?
I had such a pain at first, but then I cried and cried, until it seemed like I couldn't anymore. Now it's more like a numbness which reaches to every part of my body, to my soul.
Numb. I'd pray to God that he would be merciful and make me numb, but why would he listen to me now? But is this really what you've come? To talk about what it feels like to fail a friend?
Yes, but really more than that. Much more than that. You know, I've always been a man of action. If you damage your boat, you don't sit around bemoaning your fate. You do what you have to do to fix it, and you go on. That's the way I've always been. But now, I don't know. I don't know how to fix this. What do we do to fix this, Judas?
What do we do? Now I really doubt you could feel as I do. There's nothing to do. It's all over and done. I've turned on a friend. I've failed God. I'm only fit for the refuse heap.
But you can't talk that way, Judas. It's so unlike what he taught us. Even though what you've done, what we've both done, seems unforgivable, there should be some way it can be made right. Jesus is still Jesus, Judas. Jesus still loves you, and he still loves me.
Thank you, Peter, for those words. You may have denied Jesus once, but you haven't turned from me. In your kindness, you haven't turned from what Jesus taught, and somehow, even now, I know he sees that. But I can't find the grace you speak of in my heart. There's only one way to make things right. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. That's what the law says. Payment must be made.
Payment must be made? Payment must be made. Yes, that's it. That sounds like what Jesus would have said. It's what he did say back when we began to head for Jerusalem. He said he would have to suffer many things and die. I didn't understand them. I told him such would not be. But he got angry at me and said, "Get behind me, Satan." That hurt so badly when he said it. But now I understand what he was trying to teach us. Payment had to be made, and he had to make it. When you betray a friend, you really can't do anything to make it right. You can only accept what God has already done. He made the payment, and now he freely gives his forgiveness to me who deny him, and to you, Judas. Judas? Oh, Judas, Judas. Now you not only betray the Lord, but yourself as well. Jesus gave so much so freely, I only wonder how many others will insist on punishing themselves.